All right, this is Draco Mortis by Jake Clover. And if I understand languages appropriately, this is, I guess, Dragon Death. As this screenshot here, I guess is a thumbnail, if you want to put it that way. Dragons causes SP question mark chaos among humans. And that SP question mark is in a surrounded by parentheses. This is 12 years ago, October 4th, 2011. Not as many views, I think, as Explode them down. Kind of average views, average likes. Can you reach the end of time as a dragon? Show those humans that nothing can stop you. Nothing will prevent you from reaching the end of time. Use mouse. Eat people with your head. Don't eat tanks, jeeps, or nukes with your head. They hurt. Dodge them instead. Tanks and jeeps can be stomped on with your mighty feet. So I don't think you quite dodge them, right? You're stomping on them instead. All ages, cartoon violence, fantasy violence, game maker. And let's just get right into the game. By Jake Clover. There it is. That was the title of the game. And this is actually just way too fast, I think, for... I clicked the mouse and it did that. And I see now that's a reset button, all right. This is just way too fast, I think, for any normal human to even keep up with. I hope that maybe I'm going to eventually understand like what a tank looks like. I don't know where that explanation came. Okay, that's right. I'm not supposed to hit those. That came out of nowhere. I don't know how I'm supposed to dodge it. Oh, there. Okay, I can't really. Yeah, this game's way faster than the other ones. This is by far his fastest paced game. And I think probably you're already going to notice the main issue with this is the obvious main issue is that this is probably a little bit repetitive, right? Because if you restart, which you're probably going to because these guys come out of nowhere, these tanks, just like that, you're eventually going to just notice you're going through the initial stages of eating dudes on horses, humans, and then out of nowhere, right, you get the tanks, you get the jeeps to come out. There we go. Like it's really hard to dodge them, right? And when I try to actually raise my head, I notice that it's not quite so easy for me to dodge those tanks as those trucks as I walk upwards. So to analyze everything else, the soundtrack is, I want to say, pretty standard, like chiptune, sequencer, and tracker, maybe, if you prefer that term. The visuals, pretty minimalist. I think obviously the dudes are represented the way they should be. I think you could pretty much tell, like, I'm stomping on cars. You can tell that a lot of the dudes, they look like dudes. Although it's not, of course, highly detailed, but it pretty much does what it has to do. And it feels like at this point, I don't know, do I just like keep stomping? Is that okay? Is it okay for me to not eat anyone? Maybe I could be like a little bit of a pacifist if I wanted to, or maybe not. Here, I'm gonna do this strategy. I'm just gonna move my mouse back and forth real quick. Okay, not across the entire screen, but like in, small regions. Maybe that's the strategy. And then when they disappear, you just go in for a quick bite. Okay, it kind of feels like I broke the game at this point. So I don't think you're supposed to be doing what I'm doing. And I think, quite frankly, if this were the entire game, I think it would be pretty boring at a certain point. All right. Oh, and the song ended. So when the song ends, you actually get tanks. All right, there we go. So a real quick note about the visuals. It's really hard for me to describe it because I'm not so much of a visual person. It is as if you took the colors of the rainbow and not the full rainbow, but most of the 80% of the rainbow. You take out the one color like no one likes, and you sort of mute it. Now that I see this rolling down my screen, it makes me think of Germany, but maybe that's just because we came off of the whole Reddit r/place event, and Germany just painted their flag across the entire thing. But besides that, it's like, what if you kind of up the contrast? I believe is the right aspect of visuals. What if you up the contrast of flags of not a flag of colors? What if you up the contrast of like the colors of most of the rainbow and use them as visuals that way, right? And these visuals you can kind of see are like constantly exploding. I don't know if the explosions are predetermined or if there's like if they react to your movements. Not quite sure. I mean, I guess I could like try here. So if I eat this dude, Yeah, I see the colors actually react to you. And if I do nothing, the colors kind of go back to normal. I eat this guy. Yeah, you can see like maybe that's supposed to represent blood. I guess that, I mean, that's what I'm guessing, right? That's like, it's as if I'm like chomping on the humans and all the blood comes out. And yeah, I see that's supposed to represent like bursts, like explosions, bursts of fire coming out from the trucks being smashed upon or stomped upon. Anyway, I think that's I want to say a good majority of this game covered. This was a much shorter game than some of the other ones, and that one was by Jake Clover. So now it's time to address the comments on the release page. Great pixels, great concept, feels a little clumsy like controlling a shadow puppet by Indie Game Hunt. And this was 10 years ago. So quite some time, I would say, after the game was posted. Do you automatically like your own comment? Because why would you do this? That must be why. That must be on purpose, yeah. Retsa Games. Visual were really cool. Very simple gameplay. I think I 90 to 80% agree with the visual part. Obviously, the gameplay is simple. Jelly Gal, back at it again. Interesting concept and graphics. I mean, I guess. It's a pretty fun game too, but rather difficult. Controlling the dragon is a bit strange, but I think that adds to the weird feel of the game. Worth a try. And you know, now that I think about it, the whole controlling the dragon thing, it reminds me of one of the most common complaints about Red Dead Redemption 2, that controlling your character, I forgot the dude's name, whatever, controlling the main character feels a little bit clumsy. And I guess it's because Rockstar really wanted to make sure that you felt as if you were, you're a human being who's subject to physics and whatever stresses of the body, of muscles, joints, ligaments, etc. Worth a try. And yeah, it was worth a try. Controlling the dragon is definitely strange. It definitely didn't feel like when you went up that the entire dragon went up. It felt more like you're raising the head up, that the dragon is like, it's not just straight up, it's like a diagonal up because the dragon is being weighed down by its head. And so let's see what, if anyone has rated it, given it a numerical rating on Glitchwave. Let's see what they even gave it. All right, a 0.98 out of 5. Better than the last game. You know, it's an improvement. Yeah, this person gave it a 3.5 out of 10. And the other person gave it a 1.5 out of 5. So 3 out of 10. So according to the total worldwide population of 2 people, this is a 1 out of 5. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that adds up, but that's because their ratings are weighted differently. Yeah, I'm curious. Okay, I just checked. This is definitely not on the other video game rating website, Backlogged. This is kind of the only reference for this sort of thing. For this, for like numerical ratings of games by Jake. By the way, I'm so sorry. I keep saying Jack. And some of the times I've been playing this, it's Jake. So, wow, review. Mechanics. Control a dragon's head. Eat people by leveraging the head into human bodies. Avoid trucks and tanks. Instead, stomp on them. Don't eat. And that's good advice. Don't eat trucks and tanks. I would not recommend stomping on them though. Resource management. There was like none I could really count. You have a life bar, but it's invisible. You have to guess, right? This is also a sort of debate that is kind of, I see on and off. Is it okay to, like, imagine if Dark Souls had its bosses, but those bosses had no life bar. Would that make the game better, or would that be like more appropriate for how challenging the game is, or would that just be obnoxious? I'm not sure. Especially because I actually really haven't played Dark Souls, but it's definitely a conversation I've seen mentioned. So is that okay? Don't know. I don't know if it's okay if it's invisible. Fun. This is really hard because I think that the game is so immediate, it doesn't set in, right? There is no case where you go through the systems of the game, you make mistakes, and you're like, okay, I have to readjust. And I think a big part of that is because you can cheese it, like what I was kind of doing. You could just like raise your head and stomp on all the trucks and tanks and never like lower your head to eat any humans. At a certain point, it just felt like I'm not really challenged to, I'm not trying to advance the game forward. I'm just trying to stall the game, stall my loss of my health bar hit points. So how do I summarize that? Eating people doesn't really have a challenge. And when the challenge arrives, you just cheese the game and raise your head. Raise your head into the ceiling and avoid all all of your problems, just like in real life. So graphics, ease of use, and appearance. I don't know the best way to describe the graphics. I think it's fine to say that these are like Atari graphics. Ease of use, yeah, this is like by far the easiest game so far of the 5. Controls are super simple and immediate to grasp. Don't click mouse 1 though, because that leaves the game. Through? Whatever, dude. Soundtrack and sound design. Has a single chiptune track that doesn't loop, which in my opinion, I'm okay with that. Mostly because I think the music, every time I've booted up these games, they don't have their own individual volume slider, and I don't try to adjust them through the system volume because I just forget. And it's preferable to me that there is no music sometimes. Also, of course, like eventually the music becomes repetitive. For sound design, I would say there were only really two main sounds that I can recall: eating humans and stomping on vehicles. That's about it. I just forgot I did not address appearance. So to repeat what I said, eating humans equals blood, stomping on vehicles equals explosions, and doing nothing basically leaves you with the bluish green background. So I guess that would be the sky or grass. And the title screen is a rainbow kind of thing. Looks like r/place Germany. Story and writing, none. Watch Godzilla if you want to see it. Is it repetitive? In my opinion, yeah. And it's especially repetitive if you cheese it. It also feels like there's not really too much of an ultimate goal. Maybe there is. And if I do cheese the game, it doesn't feel like I can really engage with the main mechanic of eating humans. So where does it stand in the wider scheme of all things gamer? I don't know. Can I say this is like a collectathon, but with a Godzilla kaiju angle? By the way, I know that's not the appropriate way to use collectathon. I know that applies to. Let me check. I know Banjo Kazooie is a sort of collectathon. It's a collectathon platformer. Psychonauts 2, Space Mario Odyssey. Yeah, I know it. This has no platforming, so it doesn't really fit. But I see it as you are a Godzilla character who's collecting human bodies and avoiding obstacles. Which I guess you can argue in a platformer, you also avoid obstacles, and that's like, but it's not a platformer. And by obstacles, I mean vehicles. But of course, in a platform, maybe it would be obstacles. Would it? Probably not always. Enemies, right? You'd be avoiding enemies. Where does it stand amongst the work of the developer? So I'd say this is the quickest delivery. I think you get pretty much everything. These games are already pretty short and they already deliver pretty quickly, but I think this is like even quicker than all those, right? Which the way to put it is like the other games are like hardcore punk. This is like a metalcore, grindcore sort of game if anyone is musically inclined. Clean Atari graphics. Yeah, some of the other games had pretty I don't know how to correctly describe. Again, I'm not a visual person, but the Tomato game, not the cleanest. The Roadkill game, not the cleanest. Splodum was pretty clean, but it wasn't so, I want to say, retro or 80s. I'm trying to think of the other games I played from him. This is much cleaner than Rainbow Kitty. The music doesn't loop compared to others, which probably seems like a minor detail, but to me, I think it's something that did seem to be overlooked a little bit. Also, this music doesn't seem to be credited, so maybe this was made by Jake himself, but there's no confirmation of that. That's just a guess. Straightforward controls with mostly immediate mastery. And what I mean by that is it doesn't I guess what I'm saying is in Splodum Down, it felt like I had to guess not entirely guess, but to understand the best way to use the shield, whether I wanted to use it for a missile or to hold on to it. And for the tomato game, I had to understand that you could just hold down Z and constantly throw tomatoes. Similarly, it goes for the Rainbow Kitty, where I had to understand the mechanics of the bullets, the physics of the bullets against the cars. For Roadkill Bonanza, you had to learn how to actually control the car, and it goes here as the whole clunkiness of the car translates to the clunkiness of like controlling the what was it? Yeah, it's a dragon, right? Controlling the dragon. This is where I say it's mostly immediate mastery, because you have to understand the physics of this game in the same way you have to understand the physics of Roadkill Bonanza 3. So surprisingly, this game was pretty short. Just to close it out, I'm gonna see what happens if I cheese the entire game. Something I've also noticed is that this pretty much it doesn't really have a collective to go along with it. I didn't see anyone who's from Yo-Yo Games. I didn't see anyone who's from Pixel House. It's just Jake Clover, right? There's not even a collaborative musical artist who made music that could go along with this game in some way. And something I also did forget to touch on is how this dragon is effectively going through time. So the knights represent the medieval era. I guess the humans represent, I don't know, probably caveman, like the ancient era. No, ancient era would be like what, Egypt or something like that? They had horses back then, I'm pretty sure. So I don't even know what's before the Jurassic era, maybe. Which I guess you could say the dragon is like literally from the Jurassic era. And then tank era is the more modern era, the 1900s, 2000s. I guess that's a little bit of a secret way of storytelling. Splodem Down also had the same style of storytelling, where a lot of the background, a lot of the environment, the objects, the tools, the enemies are telling the story, but it's not directly conveyed. Now I'm waiting for this to progress. Okay, something I'm noticing is that the timeline actually isn't progressing, and I guess that's because I'm not eating humans, so I have to eat humans. I like to pass the time too by... No, I'm not going to say that. It is really hard to find an opportunity to actually eat anyone. Yeah, it's just the way the dragon raises their head. Just, if any truck is on the left side, you pretty much get hit by it. Yeah, there it is. Like, I just got hit by that. I'm pretty sure I did, anyway. So, spoiler alert, you actually cannot cheese this game. And that's because a lot of the game, it revolves around not simply time passing by normally, but rather how many humans you eat. Which is an interesting concept if you think about it, right? Because now this is a universe where the progression of time revolves around how many humans are eaten. Because normally we tend to measure time by seconds, hours, days, months, and years, and so on. But instead, in this universe, it's actually measured by how many humans are eaten. Maybe, I guess, how many humans are eating as well. Because perhaps like it's just the act of eating alone that makes time pass by. Of course, this is only conjecture, right? I can't prove this. I don't have the author's notes on hand, and I don't even have the word of the author, I think, unless like do some deep digging. So what we have is a universe where a dragon can progress time by eating human, which makes you kind of think, why does the dragon have to progress time that way? Why can't the dragon simply wait? Is the dragon just so eager to eat humans from a specific era that he cannot imagine moving on and waiting for other humans until another technological advancement occurs? Why is the dragon not just fine with I don't know, trucks? Why is the dragon not fine with just trucks, tanks being crushed under, well, not even his monstrous feet, because the feet of the dragon appear to be relatively modest, I would say, for what we consider to be such a large lizard. I think, now that I also think of it, these feet are definitely not large enough to crush a tank. To crush a A truck, like a dune buggy sort of vehicle, sure, but a tank, that's kind of immersion breaking in my opinion. So following up with immersion breaking is the fact that the dragon effectively has unlimited energy. The dragon, to quote Captain America, can do this all day, but in reality, the dragon is doing it for the entirety of time, right? So they can do it for all millennia, or however you want to define the entire unit of time. I have no idea about quantum physics. I don't even know if quantum physics is about time, but effectively, how can a dragon keep up such energy for the entirety of time? Because they clearly have the energy, the dragon is constantly moving its jaws up and down, and that for us as humans, right, that probably would take a lot of energy, not just for the moment, mind you, but the dragon is doing this for millennia, constantly chomping like unceasingly, and at times for no reason when there aren't even any humans in reach. So clearly the dragon has the energy, a ton of energy under its reserves, but somehow it still has to eat humans to progress time. I think this dragon is maybe a little bit, I would say, sadistic, just for no reason. Why would a dragon need to eat humans if it just naturally has the energy, if it can just naturally perhaps progress time? And it must be able to progress time, right? It must have some sort of, like, the resistances of this dragon are so enormous that if a truck simply passes by and doesn't hit its head, it does not get hit. If anything, it is a masterful and artful dodger, incredibly evasive. Which actually brings me to another point. The humans don't use anything beyond trucks, bombs, and tanks. Why don't they bring out other firepower? Why don't the humans simply band together to contest this dragon? Because of course you don't want a dragon simply burning the countryside and eating humans as it sees fit. You want to control this problem, right? You like in Chainsaw Man, you have devil hunters. Yeah, you would want dragon hunters. You would want, as not just as a region, as a nation, as a local village, but like worldwide, you would want an entire coalition against this dragon. And this dragon clearly has a weak point. The weak point being the head. So why not just gather firepower to combat the dragon that way, as a coalition of Earth? To also get some notes from the film or comic series, whatever you prefer, Watchmen. Why not just have without going too much into detail, Watchmen tries to promote a sort of misguided unity, which I won't go into detail, but that's what it does, right? And some of that misguided unity eventually is against a specific force, which again, I'm not being specific because I don't want to spoil anything. So in here, the specific force is the dragon. Why aren't these nations simply going up against this specific supernatural force with weapons that are specialized, that are meant to tackle the dragon's head in order to pacify the threat? Just a lot of answers that are left unanswered in the whole universe of Draco Mortis. As for other answers that have not, of course, been answered, one must wonder, why are the humans running into the dragon? As we can perhaps surmise, the dragon is basically holding down a specific location. Are the humans secretly invading the dragon's home? I don't think so. The main reason why I don't think so is because, well, where would these citizens come from? Why are humans running around as they are right now in this universe nearby the dragon? I doubt that there are villages that have just been set up, or like have set up trade routes, set up routes for trying to transport themselves to other areas that happen to cut through the house of a dragon, the hoard of a dragon, as most people say, right? Because dragons tend to hoard a lot of gold, a lot of treasure. Although one must wonder if a time dragon even cares about such wealth. But getting back to the task at hand, the humans are running at times into the dragon. Now, maybe I'm being a little bit too uncharitable to the humans, but why don't they just, avoid the dragon without running near it? Why are some humans trying to cross the area that intersects with the dragon? Why not just run away? Let the tanks handle it, the trucks, the knights, the bombs. And it clearly this is a maybe it's not so much of a incredible world as it might seem. Maybe this world really is just so microscopic that it only is restricted to this area, and the humans, albeit seemingly limitless throughout all time, they don't really have anywhere else to go. They're just going back and forth. And maybe that's because that's the only area they know. They can only go back and forth. Somehow, though, they still have the capability to actually develop tanks, bombs, to understand how to ride horseback, to, I guess, to forge armor for the horses, presumably, to understand how to engineer like the engines of a truck, of a tank. Speaking of which, these tanks don't necessarily seem to run on the usual locomotion. As you may see, the top of the tank is constantly going up and down, roughly like one pixel or 2 pixels worth of a difference, which indicates that this tank is not moving through the usual treads, the tires that we all come to know and love for our own models of tanks in the modern day, but rather it is somehow like how a chicken must move its head in order to move overall. It's as if the tank must move its head in order to move, which indicates a different degree of engineering, and perhaps a divergence from the normal engineering that we all know and love in our own world. Just tons of these microscopic, to reuse the word, microscopic differences that can be found in how these worlds differ with when we see worlds without time dragons and when we see worlds with time dragons. With all of that said, would I want anything to change? I'm not sure. I would certainly not want my universe to be occupied with a time dragon that is so ravenous for humans simply because they want to progress time. But it would be an interesting experience, would it not? I guess not. I mean, I guess most people, as I mentioned, Chainsaw Man, most people would not want to live in the world of Chainsaw Man. That is not a world that most would consider to be just. A world that is definitely not comfortable to live in because of all the threats that surround it. And although it is, for some people, a break from the humdrum of everyday life, it also reminds us that we would not want these supernatural threats to rear their head, because those heads are constantly chomping and they're looking out for a certain source of food. Oh, and that's the end of time. How surprising. The end of time happens right after you get bombs. Atomic bombs, or just regular air bombs? I'm not sure. Yeah, and I think that's I didn't really talk much at the end there, but that's because there's nothing to talk about. Just playing the game. I noticed at a certain point that you really are meant to avoid. You really are meant to avoid the vehicles and the bombs at the end. You're not supposed to actually stomp on them. You pick there are 3 lanes, right? Top, middle, and bottom, and you're supposed to avoid the lane with the vehicle and go to the other lane that's free in order to eat the humans and get to the end of time. So I understand now that the vehicles aren't so they're not always chaotic, or maybe that's a little bit of specific to the tank phase of the game. And then when the bombs come in, that's when you have to actually start going into another series of lanes, right? You have the left lane, middle lane, and right lane. And in addition, you have the top, middle, and bottom lane. I don't know what else to replace for middle for vertical or horizontal lanes, but you should get the point. The bomb phase is pretty quick, and the bombs themselves are pretty slow, probably a little bit slower than the tanks. But nonetheless, I'm happy I actually got to say I got to the end of time. How many people can say that? Not too many. And I think it's time to end this thing I'm doing, because that dragon, I think, is tired by now. Been eating for millennia. GG's. Good games. Bye, Jake Clover.